Hey gang, heads up. Today we're talking about sex and open relationships. This is going to get somewhat personal, so anybody who doesn't want to hear about my sex life, or who frankly isn't mature enough to handle such adult topics, should leave now. See ya. Alright, so let's talk about open relationships. This guy has several reasons why you should never enter into one. Let's take a look.
The first reason not to enter an open relationship is communication. See, we know that one of the most important elements of successful relationships is the ability for two partners to communicate with each other, to share their deeper hopes and dreams, to share what's going on in their lives, to share all the little tidbits as well as the really important stuff. Well, if you're in an open relationship, you really challenge the foundation of this essential element of relationships, because you start to tell each other all the different things that are happening in the relationships you're having with other people, and it really does cut to the core of that essential element of relationships that makes it extremely difficult.
Sorry, more communication is one of the pitfalls of an open relationship? Communication in general will make things easier, can bring to the surface what's missing from your relationship, and what makes your relationship strong. Communication is extremely important to all relationships, but being in a healthy, open relationship means communication is even more imperative. I want to know what my wife is up to and what she's enjoying, and she feels the same way about knowing about me and my experiences. And we also communicate what worries us and what issues we might have. If our relationship was having problems, communication will help solve them, not exasperate them. And like any other skill, practice makes perfect. If an open relationship means that communication will be more necessary and frequent, it'll be something that both parties will have to engage in and therefore get better at. Hey, I said good communication, not good grammar. And by the way, communication is important for any relationship. If you can't communicate in general, there are going to be problems. There are many situations where poor communication will cause issues, not just in the bedroom. That being said, when discussing a major change in your relationship with somebody, communication is especially important. Even before embarking on anything like an open relationship, you need to have some major open communications with your partner. Make sure you are both on board. Not just accepting that it's what the other wants, but be sure it's something that both partners are looking for. Set up ground rules. Let your partner know what your expectations are, and listen when they let you know what their expectations are also. And of course, discuss your concerns as well.
The second reason is new versus old. Often when we're in a relationship for a while, things get a little bit old and rusty and stale, and we're very tempted to bring the new into our lives. New is more variety. It's getting to know new things in different ways, which creates more dopamine hits in the system, and it's very addictive to get that constant access to new people. Well, I think that we should ask ourselves, what are we giving up when we let go of the old? Often things take time to build, and what you create with the new people coming into your life, it is much more fickle. It's kind of like a house of cards. It can blow over with the wind.
Yes, new can be fun. That's one of the main reasons to experiment, get a bit of strange on the side. But you should never overlook what you've got either. Our relationship is one of the most important things my wife and I have, and while some fun on the side can be, well, fun, we don't let it interfere with our personal connection. For an analogy, my wife and I love the city we're in, but once in a while we enjoy traveling elsewhere. Those following my Twitter account a few months ago may recall we took a long trip across the foreign country of, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, America? Visiting 39 different states. Do we have any viewers from America out there? Love the traveling, but we're really happy to return home. The new and different was fun, but it doesn't compare to what we truly love. And no, if a relationship is in trouble, seeking outside gratification will rarely be a patch for it. When my wife was going through a spell where she was not feeling as amorous as normal, she suggested that I find somebody to play with on the side. That was one of the times that I didn't want to. Because of where our relationship was at the time, it would honestly have made things more difficult. Open your relationship up only if you are both sure about how strong it already is. Adding new people, while it can be a fun change of pace, will unlikely be a fix for an already troubled relationship.
It brings me to the third reason why you shouldn't enter into an open relationship, and this is around being honest about your true intentions. You see, I think in most of the cases with open relationships, it's often one of the partners who really wants to explore that side of themselves, and it creates pressure on the other partner to follow them and sort of embrace the reasons that they're giving. Well, it's really important to be honest, and when we're not honest with ourselves about our true intentions, that creates a lot of resentment down the line.
That may be what you think, but that isn't always the case. Yes, you must be honest with your intentions with your significant other over everything you do, and never ever pressure your partner into doing anything that they don't want to do. That's why both partners must be on board for something like this, and need to let the other know their feelings. But if both partners honestly want to, there's no reason why they shouldn't. This is not just in open relationships, but in anything we do. Both my wife and I understand that we would rather hear the other honestly does not want to do something than to agree to something that they don't want to do. For example, if one of us wants to spend the night watching soppy romantic comedies, and my wife doesn't, we would discuss it and be sure to take both our feelings into account. Our relationship is strong enough that we know we can turn on the other's suggestions if we aren't comfortable with them.
Reason number 4 is that open relationships are time consuming. Who has time for one relationship anyway? Do you really have time to get involved with another person? Not just the sex and all the great things that are going to happen, but all of the emotional issues, discussing things, finding out what each other's doing with your lives. It's really time consuming, and that can be quite a strain.
Sure, relationships are time consuming. I do things with my wife, but I still make time for her, as she is my priority. If I were to see anybody else without her, I would still be sure that I would make time for my wife as well. She takes precedence in my life. Any potential flings would have to know that my wife would, at all times, come before them. And if I couldn't make enough time for my wife, then anything new would have to be discarded. Look, let me put it another way. Making these videos is time consuming. On one hand, I'm spending time away from my family writing, recording, editing, and obsessively looking at the like counter in a sad attempt to get acceptance from people who I've never actually met. Like most hobbies, it takes me away from my family. If it ever gets to the point that my family feels that the time I spend making these is interfering with my relationship with them, I'm gonna stop. Sorry, legions of fans. In the same way, if you're in an open relationship and either you or your partner feels it's taking away from your main relationship, it would be prudent to reevaluate how you spend your time.
But the 5th reason, it's the kind of thing you don't really want to mention, but it's STDs. Do you really want to be in a relationship with someone who's out there with other people? And there are some problems out there when we have sex with multiple people. We can catch STDs.
This is actually very important. I'm going to say this to anybody who's not in a steady monogamous relationship. Whether you're single or in an open relationship, it's important to be safe. Get tested and use protection. We're sure to have our blood tests done, and the same goes for any potential partners. If we're playing with somebody new, condoms are always a must, at least for the first time, even if their paperwork checks out. It's very important to be safe rather than sorry. We've had to turn away people because they didn't want to get their blood work done for a variety of reasons. If you're too embarrassed to talk to your doctor or can't be bothered to go to the lab to get tested, you aren't mature or responsible enough to play with anybody. And we have had people that didn't want to use protection with us. Since we demand it, we're the ones to provide it. If anybody ever refuses to put it on, then the answer is, here's a condom, there's the door, the choice is yours.
The 6th reason is that it's not real freedom. Often the desire for freedom is the primary driver for getting into an open relationship. Well, once we actually take that step and we have that freedom in our lives, we often realize that the freedom's not actually there in the first place, because even if the other person says that they're fine with us going out and having a good time meeting other people, when we see the hurt that can actually be created in the other person's life, we realize that that freedom wasn't there to begin with.
This goes back to the communication. You need to be sure that everybody involved is open and on board for the right reasons. If your significant other is only doing it to make you happy, then this is a major red flag and something to be discussed. You seem to be going back to the assumption that open relationships are always going to be one person that wants it, and the other only goes along to make their partner happy. This is, at least to me, a very unhealthy situation. Both partners need to be honestly on board for something like an open relationship. This is a bit of a side note. Without getting into too much detail, at one point my wife wanted to try something that I honestly wasn't comfortable with doing. So, we found somebody who was comfortable and experienced with it. She had a good time, got to experience what she wanted, and I wasn't pressured into doing anything I was uncomfortable with.
The seventh reason not to enter into an open relationship is jealousy. See, jealousy is a reality that we all have to contend with, and I think that a lot of people who advocate for open relationships are saying, well, when you feel jealousy, that's an issue inside yourself. It's something that you need to look into and confront and get over your jealousy because you don't own someone else. Well, I think there's a flip side to this, and that's that jealousy is actually a wonderful emotion to experience. It shows that you care, that you really want to be with that other person and you don't want them to be with anyone else. And there's something quite beautiful about having that very strong desire to choose someone, to say, I really want to be with you. I want to create something with you. And I feel we often run away from our jealousy, but actually jealousy is something to be embraced. It's there for a reason. It's something we can trust. It shows us what we really want.
Okay, this doesn't really apply to us because I guess I don't see jealousy in the same way. Why would I be jealous if my wife is enjoying herself? If it got to the point where she's actively excluding me, then I would talk to her about it and we'd work out our problems. I am not saying that jealousy is something you shouldn't be worried about. You should ask yourself, will I be jealous if opening this relationship works out better for my partner than for me? And take your partner's feelings into consideration. How will they feel if it works out better for you than for them? This is important. Think of every possibility and be confident that both you and your partner will be okay with all of them before getting involved with any outside relationship. If either of you think one or both couldn't handle it for any reason, including jealousy, then yes, it might not be for you. But just because it isn't right for some people doesn't mean it isn't for everybody.
Number 8 is that you might not stack up. You see, as we said before, the new in front of us is very tantalizing. It's wonderful to experience new things. And often we run away with the emotion of it. Well, if you do that with your partner, they're going to meet someone else who's going to be very inspiring, and they've got permission, the boundaries have been created where they can go off and meet all these new people, and it's very difficult to always compete with the new and shiny things that present themselves in other people's lives. And the reality is you're putting your relationship at risk by being so careless in getting rid of these kinds of boundaries, and it really can threaten the deep and intimate connection that you've built up over a long period of time with that special someone.
Might not stack up. Huh. So what you're saying is that you might not be good enough for your partner, so they shouldn't expect to get the best sexual pleasure possible. If I'm not pleasing my wife as much as somebody else, then we would communicate with each other and find out why. We can learn from others to do better. It's like golf. Wow. Classy. No. In theory, golf is a single-player game. The other players don't affect your score in any way. But if you have other people in your group, you'll work harder to improve your game than if you were the only one playing. You'll have a goal to beat and incentive to work harder. Additionally, you can learn from others, see what their strengths are, and adjust your techniques to be an even better player. And yes, competing with the new can be difficult, but it encourages us to be new with each other. Competition will make us try harder to improve our own sexual relationship with one another.
Point number 9, it's a love thing. You see, relationships aren't just about sex and that kind of physical pleasure that we get from being with our partner regularly or meeting new people. Love is something that builds over time. It's a very deep and intimate connection. And when we're with other people, we're violating that very sacred bond, that deep sense of love that we've created over time. Even when we say that we're okay with our partner being with someone else and we can still really connect with that love, I think ultimately that's what we're risking. We're risking the ideal of true love.
Okay, so I'll start with this. Why must sexual relationships be about love? The people that my wife and I see, we rarely see outside of a sexual setting. No time for love to build up or any emotions to develop. Now I will say that it is a possibility that feelings can develop for the other person. My ex and I played with others and, long story short, she ended up with one of those guys. Now, obviously I was hurt at the time, but thinking back, this was a really good thing for us. This goes back to an earlier point. We did not communicate as well as we could have. We didn't set up ground rules and an understanding of where we wanted our relationship to go. That is why I'm relating this. I'm trying to explain why making sure expectations are set is an important thing. He obviously made her happier than I did, and from what I've heard, they're doing well together. Plus, if we'd stayed together, then I wouldn't have met my wife, who is the love of my life. Yes, right after she left me was a rough time, but in the end, it worked out better for all of us. And before anybody jumps on the, well, this relationship didn't work, so all open relationships don't work line, Remember that many monogamous relationships don't work out either, so one example of it not working should not be treated as stating that none ever work. And our problems were more than just what's happening in the bedroom.
That sunset's looking pretty nice. We're going to go out for it. I'm going to take you to my favorite place in Chiang Mai in just a moment. Point number 10 is that awkwardness abounds. It's very difficult to be in a relationship with someone and people know that you're with that special person and you're always out with other people and you end up bumping into your actual partner while you're out with that other person, or you bump into mutual friends and people talk, and it's very difficult to avoid that awkwardness. And you may think that that's just something to deal with, that's something to embrace, but it really does add up over time, and it cuts to the core of the foundation of whether you really believe you're doing the right thing for yourself and for your partner. And when the awkwardness starts to stack up, it kind of chips away at you, it eats away at your core.
Well, let's see. I'm talking about this on a public channel, so not really awkward. Touché. But yes, it can get awkward if some of my friends know what I get up to. And while the opinions of my friends are important to me, in the end, that's our business and I hope they respect it. But the details of my private life are just that, private. The bedroom details in a monogamous relationship are not for public consumption. Why should it become public when another person or people are involved? In the end, it'll only be awkward if social normities make it awkward. It used to be that interracial coupling would have been discouraged because of saying it would be awkward to be around people. It's no longer an awkward thing and is never frowned upon anymore. Really? Wow. Okay, less so. But things like social taboos change over time. As things are more open and understood, they become less awkward.
Number 11, why you should reconsider getting into an open relationship is that it cheapens the effect of your relationship. It's kind of like inflation of the economy. When you spread your love too widely, it actually means you're often repeating the same gestures with other people, you're recycling those emotions, and you're realizing that you can duplicate what actually goes on in your love life. And I think what that does is it dilutes what's going on. It kind of makes it much less special, that real intimate bond that you've got with that one very important person in your life.
Again, you may see it as cheapening your relationship, but we don't. It's adding some flavor to one part of our relationship, but it isn't cheapening any of it. There are things I do for my wife that I don't repeat for anybody else. We make time for just each other every day. No kids, no friends, just the two of us. Even if it's just a few hours driving together and ranting about the latest news, which can be quite cathartic. The emotional connection we share is different from the physical connection we occasionally have with others. Honestly, I'm going to say that for every relationship you want to make last, monogamous or otherwise, always make time for the person you love and never take them for granted. And as a side note, they're just gestures to you. If what you do for your significant other is only a gesture that you would do for anyone, and you fear an open relationship would make that apparent, you might want to rethink how special your relationship to your partner is in the first place. Okay, so we had 11 points, and I will be fair, there are significant ones. Things like communication and safety are extremely important. These are things to be considered when talking about a major lifestyle change like an open relationship, but they're things that must be considered, not simply reasons why open relationships should never happen. Look, I'm not saying that open relationships work for every, or even most couples. If you're interested in trying it, talk to your partner, see what their thoughts are. If they have objections, listen to them. Don't try to force anybody to do anything they don't want or will be uncomfortable with, and be certain it's what you want as well. Set limits and be willing to stop if it makes either of you uncomfortable. And always remember what's important to you and your partner should take precedence over everything else.